Welcome to LinesToGo installation videos. Today we will be removing and installing brake lines on a 2003 Silverado 2500 HD with LinesToGo part number BLC-189-SS from the front to the rear and BLC-120-SS for the rear axle. While this particular installation is on a 2003 Silverado 2500 HD, this set of lines will also work on the following year, make, and models as shown in your screen now. LinesToGo lines are made using original equipment end forms and fittings that are CNC bent for an easy and precise installation. We have also upgraded to stainless steel braided Teflon hoses for rust protection and to prevent surface fouling. These have an unlimited shelf life and anti-static PTFE liner. This set of LinesToGo lines are made from 304L stainless steel for rust resistance that exceeds OEM standards. Tech tip: disconnect the battery before working on a vehicle to reduce the risk of shorting out the battery on tools or lines. LinesToGo lines are made with a sectional design for easier installation. We also use color-coded unions on our sectioned lines. Just match the colors of the connections. Make sure to depressurize the fuel system before starting the installation. Tools required are 7, 13, 15, and 22 mm sockets and ratchet, 5/16 of an inch, 10 mm, 13 mm, and 14 mm wrenches, flat blade and Phillips screwdriver, cutting pliers, a drain pan, floor jack, and jack stands. The level of difficulty for this installation is considered to be easy. To depressurize the fuel system, locate the fuel pump fuse using your owner's manual and remove it. Start the vehicle and wait for the engine to stall. Make sure to replace the fuse once completed. Start by disconnecting the battery using a 5/16 of an inch wrench. Next, remove all the fittings on the ABS module using a 14 mm wrench. Using a 14 mm wrench, remove the primary and secondary brake line at the master cylinder. Remove the two plastic brackets holding the lines together. Using a 22 mm socket, remove all four wheels. Using a flat blade screwdriver, remove all the plastic clips securing both front inner fenders. Using a Phillips screwdriver, remove the screws going through the mud flap into the inner fender. Remove both front inner fenders. Using a flat blade screwdriver, remove the lines from the brackets located along the driver's side frame. Disconnect the left front brake line at the flex line using a 14 mm wrench. Using a pair of cutting pliers, cut the right front line in the same position. To make removing the old set of lines a little bit easier, you can use a pair of cutting pliers to cut them at the rear of the left front wheel well. Remove all of the lines located inside of the left front wheel well. Remove the remaining lines going to the front of the vehicle from underneath. Remove the fitting at the right front flex line using a 14 mm wrench. Remove the 5 bolts securing the front lower cover using a 15 mm socket. Remove the right front line from the clips located in the crossmember and remove the line from the vehicle. Remove the fuel cap and using a 7mm socket, remove the 3 screws securing the filler tube. Remove the 3 quick connect fittings from the charcoal canister located in front of the fuel tank. Using a 13mm socket, remove the single bolt securing the charcoal canister. Slide the canister towards the center of the vehicle and then remove it. Remove the quick connect fitting at the rear vapor line. Disconnect the 2 quick connect fittings at the rear pressure and return line. Support the fuel tank. Using a 15mm socket, remove the 2 bolts securing the fuel tank straps and remove the straps. Make sure to feed the filler neck over the frame while lowering the fuel tank. Once the tank is low enough, reach on top and remove the electrical connector going to the sending unit. Continue to lower the fuel tank, making sure the filler neck does not get caught on anything. Using a 14mm wrench, remove the threaded fitting at the rear flex line. Remove the rear brake line from the plastic brackets and remove the line from the vehicle. Use a 13mm socket to remove the 2 bolts securing the left rear and right rear axle line. Use a 13mm wrench to remove the threaded fittings located at the left rear flex line and at the left rear flex union. Remove the left rear axle line from the vehicle. Using a 13mm wrench, remove the threaded fittings located at the right rear flex line and at the right rear flex union. Remove the right rear axle line from the vehicle. Install the left rear axle line into place and start the threaded fittings into the left rear flex line and the rear flex union. Remove the metal bracket from the old line and install it onto the new LinesToGo brake line and secure it using a 13mm socket. Tighten the 2 threaded fittings using a 14mm wrench. Next, install the right rear axle line into place and start the 2 threaded fittings into the right rear flex line and the rear flex union. Remove the metal bracket from the old line and install it onto the new line and secure it using a 13mm socket. Tighten the 2 threaded fittings using a 14mm wrench. Install the rear section of the rear extension line into position. Start the threaded fitting into the flex line by hand. Install the forward section of the rear line into position and start the threaded fitting into the ABS module and at the threaded union. Note the LinesToGo color-coded connections at the unions. Tighten the fittings at the ABS block and the rear flex line using a 14mm wrench. Tighten the union using 2 14mm wrenches. Install the rear section of the right front line into position. Start the threaded fitting into the ABS block by hand. Install the front section of the right front line into position and start the line into the plastic retaining brackets. Start the threaded fitting into the right front flex line and also at the threaded union at the left front wheel. Tighten the fittings in the ABS block and the right front flex line using a 14mm wrench. Tighten the threaded union at the left front wheel using two 14mm wrenches. Next, install the left front line into position and start the threaded fittings into the ABS block and the left front flex line. Tighten both fittings using a 14mm wrench. Next, install the secondary line on the master cylinder into position and start the threaded fitting into the ABS block by hand. Install the primary line on the master cylinder into position and start the threaded union into the ABS block by hand. Start the primary and secondary threaded fittings into the master cylinder and tighten the fittings in the master cylinder and ABS block using a 14mm wrench. Using a 10mm wrench, bleed all four wheels, making sure to keep the brake fluid reservoir topped up. Raise the fuel tank into place, making sure to feed the filler neck over the frame. Make sure to install the electrical connector before the tank is fully up. Install the two tank straps and tighten using a 15mm socket. Tighten the three bolts at the filler neck using a 7mm socket. Install the quick connect fittings onto the pressure and return line in front of the fuel tank. Install the charcoal canister back into place and using a 13mm socket, secure it with a single bolt. Install the top and bottom quick connect fittings at the charcoal canister. Install the quick connect fitting at the rear vapor line. Install both front inner fenders and secure them using the plastic push clips. Using a Phillips screwdriver, tighten the screws in the front mud flaps. Install the plastic front lower cover and tighten using a 13mm socket. Reconnect the battery using a 5/16 of an inch wrench. Install all four wheels and torque to spec using a 22mm socket. This concludes the installation of brake lines on a 2003 Silverado 2500 HD with LinesToGo part number BLC-189-SS from the front to the rear and BLC-120-SS for the rear axle. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or would like to purchase the lines you saw today, please call us at 1-855-781-5992. Email us at info@linestogo.com or check out our website link below. And don't forget to take advantage of our free 2-day shipping. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe button below, and we will see you on our next video.